Hello on the Rockers. On this episode, we're zooming in from home. We're doing a casual tonight. We are getting baked, as in carbs. Everybody calm down. With Food Network's chef Zac Young to chat career baking tips, baking championships, and a lot more with me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin. It's on the rocks.
Thank you for being.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Lord have mercy, it's gonna be a bumpy night. Buns and bows and pantyhose on the Rocks podcast, a place where we're too glam to give a damn. James Corden, what are you doing? First, you make the gays mad for being in the prom. Then you piss off LA by taking over the streets with your musicals. And now you're getting kicked out of restaurants? Girl, what is going on? Are you becoming the new Ellen? Just less famous and less rich? Anyway, James, get it together, girl. Like us on Twitter and Instagram at On The Rocks On Air, and on Facebook, On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email, book me for a wedding, funeral, pride, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I will show up. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. The show's presented by Straw Hat Media. You can watch our now over 300 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com. Watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, streaming with Pride on SVTV, and on Channel 31 on the East Coast. Okay, we got so many questions from you guys, so we're just going to jump in. Let's get the show on the road. A huge fan, so excited he's here. Zac Young, named one of the top 10 pastry chefs in America by Dessert Professional. He's known for his playful takes on American desserts, including the all-in-one the PieCaken, which is responsible for my COVID weight. Thank you very much. He's best known for his Final Four finish on the inaugural season of Bravo's Top Shelf Just Desserts, the cooking channel's long-running show Unique Sweets, and of course his costumes and witty commentary on Food Network's Halloween Bacon Championship. He frequently appears on Chopped, Beat Bobby Flay, Worst Cooks in America, Bakers vs. Fakers, and Best Bakers in America, as well as Supermarket Stakeout and Santa's Baking Blizzard. His live cooking classes on the Food Network Kitchen app allow every culinary enthusiast to cook along with him as he prepares his favorite dishes, both sweet and savory. And you have to check out his Instagram because he's baking and cooking all the time. Please welcome Zac Young.
Cheers.
Welcome. You are like, you know how to do this. You're ready with like the bar behind you. You got the pumpkins. Like, you are just ready to go.
You know, when you have 700 square feet in New York City, the important things, the bar and the seasonal decor, that's what you do. Literally, I sleep here, under the stairs, like Harry Potter.
Well, you know what's funny? Like, all these New York apartments are going viral because people are showing exactly where they live. And I think one girl had like a 300 square foot, and it was literally, and she pays like almost $2,000 for it. It's ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've lived here for 19 years, like this month.
Wow.
And I was thinking kind of about my entire trajectory of like living on 110th Street and Park in the heart of Spanish Harlem when I first moved here. I stayed there for 7 years. I actually loved that neighborhood. I loved that neighborhood. But that apartment, it was a 6th floor walk up, which is interesting because the building only had 5 floors legally. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, and that's how you burn off your PieCaken calories. You know, it's all those walk-ups, right?
Well, at that point, I was eating frozen spinach and canned tuna, and that was it because that was all I could afford.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because before we get into all the Food Network questions, and we got all of your questions, and we're going to get to them all, I want to talk about early Zac. You're a Maine boy, lobsters and everything. Is it true that you wanted to learn baking because your mother deprived you of decent cookies or any cookies? Is that true?
You know, I have the most amazing family ever. My mother, Sue Young, is, you know, truly like the kindest, most loving, most incredible mother, except for the fact that food was not love. We ate so we didn't die. My mother was way ahead of her time in, gluten-free, veganism, farm to table. I mean, we'd go shopping at the food co-op, which now, as an adult, actually is incredible because my relationship with food is so much better now. We were eating kale and quinoa before you could pronounce it. But it was challenging growing up because no one would trade snacks with me at lunch. Like, I have some hummus. You guys want some hummus? And they're like, what's that? That's not a Dunkaroo. So yeah, I think baking was kind of my final act of rebellion because honestly, nothing else worked. Like crashed cars. She's like, that's fine. That's what insurance is for. Came out. She's like, honey, I always knew. And then I'm like, Mom, I want to be a pastry chef. And she's
not
like,
in this house.
Yeah, I didn't raise you with those values. But
I love their name is like Sue Young from Maine. Like in my mind, she should be solving murders as she's like shopping at the co-op,
bicycling, Cabot Cove, that whole thing. But my grandmother was an incredible cook. And she was a Renaissance woman, way ahead of her time. She, owned restaurants, or owned a restaurant, owned antique store, owned like race horses. I mean, she was like just feisty, independent, slightly ornery, down east woman, but just the most amazing cook. So my biggest food memories growing up were with her, and during the holidays because Sue Young wasn't cooking. Turkey not in my oven.
So let's talk about what kind of kid you were. I know you did theater. You started doing theater, community children's theater, very young. And then you went to school for it. Were you kind of this introvert kid? Were you always like on stage, jazz hands and all spotlights, or what kind of kid were you?
I think I was a kid that no one knew what to do with. Like in 8th grade biology class, the teacher came in and I was dancing with the skeleton. Like, who does that? And I was also the kid who they had to stop sending me to the principal's office because I loved the principal. I would rather be in the principal's office than in class with my peers. So I was kind of this like slightly rambunctious, yet misfit. Like I never really related to my peers except in theater and in dance. And I was always with the adults.
I know exactly what that's like. I always got better or along better with the adults, and the kids either bored me or I didn't know how to play with them. It was just awkward, and my best time was with older people. And audience would be interested to learn your first designs were not even from the kitchen; they were in the costume kind of era. How did you go from the stage to being a costumer? Wig department, Radio City Music Hall. How did that transition happen?
The whole time I was doing theater, growing up, through like community theater camp, high school, college, when I was doing any form of theater, I'd always find myself in the costume shop, hanging out. Yeah. And one day, one of them said to me, like, if you're going to hang out here, we're going to put you to work. Here's a seam ripper. And they started showing me how to sew and let me into their design process and all of that. I ended up spending more time in the costume shop than I did in rehearsals. So when I moved to New York, I did a couple of survival jobs. My first one, I worked coat check at Tao, the original Tao, like in the Lindsay Lohan days. Like, I mean, it was just crazy. I probably actually made more money working coat check at Tao, like minute by minute, than I do now. And I sold furniture. And then this opportunity came up. I knew the head of wardrobe at Radio City. She was the mother of a friend of mine. And I just ended up knocking on her door and saying, hey, like, I would love to work here on the Christmas show.
Um,
So I ended up working in the wig department.
I mean,
Uh,
that's amazing. That's like a bucket list, the holiday show at Radio City.
oh, it's insane. And back then it was also Christmas 8 months of the year.
Yeah.
You'd
Yeah.
start sometime in August and it would end sometime in February.
Was it a hard adjustment for you moving to the big city and having all these kind of experiences? What was the hardest part of acclimating to New York?
No, I always wanted to. I mean, that was always like, I always saw myself here. Um, and I actually left college after 2 years, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to move to New York. And I'd spent a summer here, the summer between high school and college. I lived here. A bunch of my friends were doing a summer dance intensive. I was not, but they had free housing, and I was like, let me crash. So I got a job as a busboy at Tavern on the Green. I had no clue what a busboy did, by the way. Again, like, lied my way into that job. I don't think I ever bussed a table the entire summer, which is what a busboy does. I never cleared
It's like
a table.
literally their job.
Correct. I stood there offering the tables bread. I was like, oh, this is great. I can be the bread boy and just like dole out the bread from the basket.
I mean, you were getting people chunky even back then.
Hooked
You
on
move on to
carbs.
PieCakens.
I know there is a theme. There is a theme.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
that's some more. Your life literally is like an HBO, series, like starting at there and then to see where you've come. Now, during all these kind of experiences in as a costumer in theater, were you baking this whole time, or when did you actually be like, you know what, I'm gonna start baking for real, not just a plate of cookies?
So it started at Radio City actually because Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really want to make Christmas cookies, but of course we never did that. So I went to Williams Sonoma. I bought a KitchenAid, like you do when you're interested in something, and the like this like basic cookie cookbook. And I was like, let me teach myself how to make cookies. And I became obsessed with the creativity within the confines of science, just based on the cookies. So I would make, the oatmeal raisin cookie, and I was like, oh, that works really well. What if I add blueberries? Fresh blueberries doesn't work. What if I add chocolate covered pretzels to the peanut butter cookie? Oh, this works. So I ended up waking up every morning at like 5 a.m. before a 6 show day and baking off a few batches of cookies and bringing them into work and, pawning them off. And then it turned into people wanting to buy them for Christmas presents. And I was like, ooh, cookies for cash.
Yeah,
Okay.
cha-ching.
And then Radio City was winding down for this season. And Sue Young, vegan mom of all people, was like, you're not auditioning. You're not talking about going on to another show in wardrobe or hair. All you're talking about are your cookies. Why don't you go to culinary school? And I mean, for me, that never was a thought. Like, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
So I went to apply to culinary school, and they're like, what are you here for? And I'm like, I want to make cookies. And they're like, we don't have a cookie program. How do you feel about like the rest of pastry? And I was like, yeah, okay, fine.
So I want to talk about like that first year going to culinary school where it went from baking for fun to now it's like here's some actual classes. It's just like when you actually study music theory in musical theater, it kind of like stops all the fun out of it because it's like here's the regimen classes. What were some of the hardest things going to culinary school to kind of adjust to? What were your good classes? What were your terrible classes?
you know, I it's funny going into culinary school, I knew nothing, but you also like to think that you know everything, right? Or you learn one technique, you learn one way of doing things, right? And you're like, oh, yeah, I know how to do this. So I feel like there was kind of this initial like cockiness or like, oh, yep, learned it, done, check. And then it's like, no, no, there are 7 ways to peel a grape. You know, there are, you need to like fully immerse yourself in this. But what I fell in love with was the same thing I loved with cookies, which was this creativity within the structure of science. And what I think what I realized was, after years of therapy too, is as a creative kid and person, the structure of rules, having that to play with and to push against and to bend a little bit, I need that. I crave that. So it was like all of a sudden, all of this like art, design, science, all of these things that I was randomly good at came together in one field.
Well, and I love your commentary, especially last night's episode of Halloween Bacon Championship. You were talking about the difference between like Italian cream and American cream, and you brought it down to the science about how like the fat adheres to the form, and that's why one cake was lower than the other. And it was like, God, and it's so fun when you add that, because for somebody that knows nothing about cooking, it is such a great mix that there is this science to it. It's not just the creativity, and it's not just throwing things together. Um, but like I know sometimes it is hard to kind of adhere to this kind of structure and and the hard work. What were your terrible things? What like the first time you made was like awful?
Everything. Um, my handwriting is horrible. Like I could have been a doctor or a serial killer, with my handwriting. And every day at the beginning of class for like the first 2 months of culinary school, we had this like tracing paper basically and stencils that we'd have to pipe over in chocolate because they were trying to teach us basically how to write happy birthday or like happy anniversary or congratulations, which I still can't spell. And that was just awful. And when I went into running restaurants and people, and these were like high-end establishments, and people started asking for like, oh, can you write happy birthday on the plate, or can you do that? I'm like, no, we can give you a candle.
You're like, it's very gourmet to just have a candle.
I will not desecrate my dessert with a happy birthday. In reality, no, I just can't write.
So Zach, in growing up, kind of be in the theater world and then costuming and now the culinary. When growing up, did you kind of realize that, hey, maybe I'm not like the other boys. Maybe I have different feelings. Was it a big issue for you growing up?
Wait, I'm not like the other boys?
I mean, that you like other boys.
I like boys?
Girl.
What? Um, this was, it was, you know what? It was evident in kindergarten. Like I literally came home and asked my mother if it was okay for boys to like other boys.
Wow.
Because I had a really cute neighbor. I need to find him.
I was gonna say, where is he now?
I don't want to know. I feel like
he's probably watching your show.
Oh my God, can you imagine? With his family.
Yeah. His 2 kids.
And we're not going to name names.
And he's here right now. No.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was painfully obvious to me from an early age. And I have the most wonderful, accepting family, which sometimes makes it harder, especially because it's like the opposite that a lot of people go through. You're accepted at home, and then you have to like deal with your friend group or school, So I feel like I kind of had an opposite situation where it's like I didn't tell my friends first. Like my parents knew.
Yeah.
But I was, I'm consider myself so incredibly lucky to have had this support system. And it wasn't until I went to college and moved to New York and, made more queer friends that, you realize that I realized, like, oh wow, like other people's experiences are not like this. There's a lot of pain attached to this. So that was just incredibly eye-opening for me. And, what a reason why I work on behalf of so many incredible charities like the Ali Fournet Center, because I feel so incredibly lucky to have had the emotional support that I have from my family. That I want to support these organizations that give back and provide that, because it was really shell shocking for me to be like, oh wait, that wasn't easy. You got kicked out, you got abused, I mean, it hit me really hard. And I consider myself so lucky.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about your first kind of big gig at the Bouchon Bakery. What advice do you have for a chef for their first big gig? Did I say it wrong, by the way? I don't know how to pronounce it. Chef
No.
pastries,
I was just remembering back. So Bouchon Bakery was opening in the Time Warner Center. It's Thomas Keller, it's French Laundry per se. They had Bouchon in Napa, in Yountville. This was like the huge opening. I was still in culinary school, and we have to do internships at the end of culinary school. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to go right to the top. So I got a job while I was in culinary school working front of house, working the bakery counter there, so I could ingratiate myself to the organization and, become the first intern there. And I was awful. I was so bad. I was great at the front of the house. I can sell a baked good. But again, coming out of culinary school, it was like I had no clue how these things operated, yet alone at, it was the same kitchen as per se. It's a Michelin 3-star kitchen. Yeah. Like zero clue. And like my second day there, I was taking a shortcut, clearly, because I needed to soften some peanut butter. So I took the whole jar of peanut butter and took the foil off of it, except, when you open a jar of peanut butter, there's a little foil ring on top. And I popped it in the microwave in the climate control chocolate room, right? This like probably cost, I don't know, $500,000 to build out. And toss it in, walk into the main kitchen, and next thing I know, there's like smoke billowing out. The fire alarm of the Time Warner Center is going off. And they didn't fire me, which I feel very grateful for.
That could have been it. That could have been like, you're done, son.
I mean, I could have also just walked out. But
with the peanut butter.
I was too dumb to do that. I was like, oh well, we live to scoop cookies another day. That's
funny, because that's kind of the attitude bakers need on the Halloween Baking Championship. It's like, hey, this was a fail. You just got to keep on going. There's another day. There's another dessert. There's another step.
Well, and that is the obstacle for pastry chefs, especially in competition. So, like when I did Top Chef Just Desserts, everyone is so used to their home kitchens, every ingredient that they want, and like
the temperature is a certain way without the cameras and the lights,
ovens, and but like we're shopping at Ralph's. What specialty pastry ingredients can you get at Ralph's?
Pillsbury.
Freaking out because they're like, I don't have anything that I'm used to. And instead of being flexible and adapting, they're focused on what they can't do.
Yeah.
I feel like my advantage on Top Chef Desserts was I was like, wee, like, we'll just make it work. And it's that flexibility that I also try to coach the bakers on Halloween Baking or any of the other shows, where it's like, get out of your head and move to plan C, move to plan D. Your initial plan is never going to work out. So just be flexible.
Well, and that kind of is for all aspects of life. I feel like you could write a baking book, but like it goes towards like life philosophy because that's for anything that you choose to.
Oh, 100%. But when you're in the throes of it, right, and that clock is
And there's a
counting
camera in your
down,
face.
all of a sudden there's a camera in their face, there's a
Yeah.
producer asking you what you're doing, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm destroying my life. That's what I'm doing on camera.
Meanwhile, John Henson's in the corner laughing.
Uh, oh my God. Wait, can we just take a sidebar, by the way? And can I tell you about John Henson?
I have a
Okay.
few questions about him.
So growing up, I
Talk
mean, my
soup.
father and I watched Talk Soup.
Talk soup every day.
I had the biggest crush on John Henson. I mean, like,
Zach, I have a question here. Do we still have a crush on John Henson? Is my question, and smash or pass?
even more so, and Smash,
Yeah.
100%.
He's so
Um,
cute.
he is the best. So I was a replacement judge on Halloween. I came in on season 3,
Yes.
and we had got the call sheet. They hadn't told me who else was doing it, whatever. We got the call sheet the night before. Carla and I have been friends for 10 years, right? So I'm at the gym in the hotel in New Orleans and talking to Carla, who's on a layover in Chicago. And I'm like, it says John, host John pickup, 7 a.m. And I was like, who's John? And we were like racking our head of like who the John who could be hosting this was. So I leave the gym, I'm sweaty, I'm gross. I had flown in that day. I get in the elevator at the hotel, and there's John Henson. Doors open, Henson. And I scan all the way up because he's like 6'3", right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, you're John. And he's yes, I am. And I'm like, lose all ability of speech. I'm like, me Zach, me judge. And then I hit the next floor button and walk off the elevator and text the producers and say, you didn't tell me it was John Henson. Like, and please tell him I'm harmless. We have become such good friends. He is not only, I mean, just a comedy gem and
Yes.
like treasure trove of comedy too. Like he can give you everyone's routine that has ever been done. He's
Wow.
so smart, and so funny. And honestly, it's the stuff that never makes it to air. I mean,
I'm sure.
he is wildly inappropriate in the most delightful way. I mean, our
And I do know.
like, yes, the gays love him.
Yes.
I mean, anyone who does a Carol Channing impression as part of their joke.
And you guys have such a cute bromance. There's obviously mutual admiration there, and it's so joyful to see. And when they put him in flannel, I'm just like,
Oh yeah, no, I know.
He's
I know.
adorable.
I know.
Okay, I got this question from a chef. You were at New York's Butter Restaurant. You were there for 4 years, which is a good chunk of time. They want to know, as a chef, how do you know when to stay at a gig or when it's time to kind of maybe take a chance or move on? Because getting a gig is a great thing. So is it foolish to leave? How did you make that decision? What's your advice?
I'm a lifer. I was at Butter for 4 years. I was with Bobby Shapiro and Flex Muscles and Zocalo and those restaurants for 4 years. I was with David Burke for 8. And that I was still learning and growing. I was still able to learn and grow. And I feel like the litmus test for it is once you've truly exhausted, not think you've exhausted, not you're tired of the grind or you want a change of scenery, but when it's truly time to fly the coop and take the next step or do something completely different, that's the time to do it. I'll tell you, when we're hiring cooks or sous chefs or executive chefs and we're looking at the resumes, people who do it a year here, a year there, I know it feels like a long period of time, especially in the kitchen. Kitchen years are like dog years,
Yeah.
anti-dog years. I don't know. 1 year in the kitchen is like
like
3.
7. Yeah.
But you have to unless there's something so incredibly toxic, right? And that's when you need to kind of draw your boundary and say, I'm out of here. This isn't worth it. The Michelin stars aren't worth it, you know. But I am a huge fan of staying where you're at and asking for more too, even if you're at the top, right? Like I, with Craveable Hospitality Group, where PieCaken started, we started it in the basement of one of our restaurants kind of as a joke.
That's
and
crazy.
turned it into this whole retail thing. But that was me. I mean, I was a corporate pastry chef. We and a partner, and we had, I don't know, 14 restaurants at that time. And
Wow.
I wanted something else to do. So I said to our CEO, I was like, hey, do you mind if I figure out how to sell cakes out of the basement? And he's like, have at it.
You started a revolution.
And I did.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's talk about studying in France. How long were you there? And what could American chefs learn from French chefs the most?
So I was in and out. I had these incredible opportunities to go and work with the team from Valrhona Chocolate in Tom l'Hermitage, and then Chocolat Michel Cuisel up in Normandy as well. Valrhona and I have a continuing relationship as well. So my first trip there was, you know, to Valrhona, which is, I mean, in my opinion, the best chocolate in the world. Very specific, very French, their production facilities, but they also have an entire like training facility basically for chefs, and they have an incredible team of chefs who work for them, who kind of lead these classes on how to use their product, you know, and at a very high level. And I, of course, went in there. I had been at Butter, which, like, I mean, the food was so legit there. I mean, Alex Guarnaschelli, like pre-Food Network, Alex Guarnaschelli. I mean, we took it from a club, right, to like a truly like incredible restaurant. But also like I was kind of, again, like this little punk from the States that, you know, was like, I have my way of doing things and it's very over the top and very American. And instead of being like the classic French chefs, the chefs there were so entertained and like fascinated by it, and like, and said, you know, next time I'm in New York, I want to come to your restaurant. I want to see what you do, because this isn't normal. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. This isn't normal. So it was a really incredible experience. And also, I mean, talk about your kind of foundations of pastry and the geeky science behind it, right? Yeah. Especially something like chocolate, which is so scientific in its use. I mean, it's a great creative medium, but it's also a very fickle artistic medium too. So yeah, I had the most amazing experience there. And it was very much me learning from them, and them also kind of learning from what we're doing.
That's amazing. I mean, that's the best kind of education.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch Hallmark or Lifetime holiday movies. The one that gets me, I think it's the worst ever, and I can't stop watching it. It's one where Lacey Chabert goes to the chocolate, like some chocolate shop, and it's this guy, and he's competing, whatever, and she's like, you know, let's put in some rosemary or something ridiculous, and she changes the whole face of chocolate for the whole nation, and they cheer her name, and they win the competition, and the queen is like, you win, whatever, and it's the most ridiculous. It's like, I can't stop watching it though.
There is always a baking competition in like every Hallmark movie. I am personally upset that they have not called me for a cameo.
Wow, Zac, you know, a lot of Food Network and HGTV personalities are starting to creep in. Pioneer Woman, Hillary from Love It or List It. She's in a new holiday film. You just have to have your agent call.
I I have offered, but my agent has also called Dick Wolf too, because I'm like, I want to be on SVU. I don't care
100%.
if I'm sassy barista or dead hooker. Like, doesn't matter.
Give like Mariska her coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Beanson, Beanson. That was my audition. Really good. You like that?
Oh,
I mean, I'd be on FBI
Very
too. I mean, I am a sucker for an episodic crime drama, by the way.
I'm addicted to SVU. I mean, every season, every episode.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other podcast there. Because some of the casting changes that are happening, I'm not a fan of.
Oh,
So I want to talk.
Kelly Geddes, you would think she's on her way out?
She is. She only has 2 more episodes.
Why did you have to tell me that?
I know, it's so depressing, and I'm just not okay with it. And I wonder what's going to happen to Carisi. Anyway, I just want them to bring Danny back. Danny Pinto. Oh, girl.
So good.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I mean, also huge fan of Andy Carl too. Although they killed him off.
Right? Yeah, they did. So that would be odd if he were to come back. But yeah.
But his wife is going on Housewives, so we're good.
Are you serious?
Parfai's going on Housewives. Yeah.
Oh, in the new cast?
Yeah.
I haven't seen everything from BravoCon yet, so I'm a little behind.
I mean, that's what I saw originally. I mean, who knows what happened between then and now?
From what I hear, a lot happened. Anyway, so not to bring the party down, but this is a theme. You know, the joke is, God, Zac, you are so fit. You know, and you're eating desserts and you're making desserts. So I want to know what kind of body issues you might have had to deal with, not only being on TV, but also being part of the LGBTQ community, which we know can be not the friendliest. And then you're surrounded by food. How, or have you had to deal with that? Do you have a ridiculous metabolism? I know you like to work out. But what kind of body issues have you had to deal through this kind of food journey?
You know, it's interesting, and it's something that I didn't know was coming, by the way, and it's something that I also haven't like talked about publicly. I mean, my friends all know, and but you know, like my weight has been, you know, up and down my whole life. You know, I was a skinny kid. I was a really chunky kid through high school.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. The Bar Mitzvah album. If you dig in my Instagram, you'll see.
I saw a Chuck E. Cheese picture.
Yeah, no, that was skinny. No. We'll go to the Bar Mitzvah album. But then, you know, performing, dancing, all of that, you know, that, and being queer too, in the 90s, right? When it was Twink Central, it was abs.
100%. Smooth.
Michelle, smooth. Frosted tips. So when my last season at Radio City, and I was just kind of disenchanted with entertainment, and I was disenchanted with what I was doing, not necessarily Radio City, but like just my life in general. I stopped eating. Because it was the only thing I could control. And it got to the point where I think I was like 107 pounds. And, you know, like everyone started commenting about it, you know, and like, meanwhile, I thought like, oh, like I look good. Oh, finally, like I'm fitting this like twink archetype. And it got to the point where, you know, my mother came to see the Christmas show and kind of like broke down in tears and was like, you don't look healthy. Like something is very wrong here. And that was also at the same time that I started baking and started thinking about going to culinary school. So I actually went home to Maine for a few weeks. She was like, why don't you come home? Why don't we go to the doctor here? You know, we have a great like family doctor, and like let's talk about this. So I go to the doctor and kind of tell him what I'm doing, right? And I'm obsessing over calories and what I'm putting in my body because it's the only thing I can control. And he, instead of going the like anorexia treatment route, he went the OCD route because he was like, this is kind of where your brain is going, and this is what your focus is on. So once he kind of broke that cycle, and like with medication and whatnot, all of a sudden, like all of that obsession went away. And I kind of came around to the fact that it was the only thing I could control in my life because the rest of it wasn't great. And then there was the question of, is it really a good idea for me to go to culinary school, given all of these, let's say, food issues? And he said, let's try it, and like let's see what happens. And so 6 months later, I think I had maybe gained 15 pounds, which is good, very good. And like everything was going so well for me. So I went back to see him and I asked him, I was like, like, why would you say yes to that? Like to me going to culinary school and me kind of like putting myself in that scenario. And he said, it's sink or swim. And he said, it's much like one of my other patients who is a pyromaniac and wanted to become a welder.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, that scans. So, I just coming out of that and kind of recognizing my relationship with food and also pulling in some of the like the values that my mom gave me growing up in terms of like my relationship with food and valuing it as fuel as opposed to seeing it as like, oh, this isn't tasty.
Yeah.
Now it's I would say I have a very healthy relationship. But of course, there do I overcompensate at the gym? Absolutely. Like every summer, am I like, oh, time to break out the caftan? Guess I'm going to cut carbs and stop drinking. Those influences don't go away. I think for me, my key is obsessing over it. No. And when it starts to go down that spiral, it's like not worth it.
I cannot thank you enough for sharing that. We're in this culture of body positivity and inclusivity, and the reality is we still have a lot to go as a gay community, number one, but even as a nation as a whole. These are still issues that we need to talk about, that we need to address. And the more we talk about it, the more we share our stories, the more people that we can help by just talking.
Yeah, and I feel like for better or for worse, food is the common denominator, like of our lives. And that's one of the reasons that I love what I do, right? Because it's the universal language. And it's something we can all relate over. And when it comes to our relationship with food and our bodies, I mean, that should be the easiest of conversations. And instead, it becomes taboo.
Yeah.
Or it becomes comparative. Like I was at an event last night sitting next to a model, female model, like clothes hanger, gorgeous. Oh my God, this dress. I'm like, I can't with you. And I remember the entree got dropped. It was short ribs. And of course, I'm like looking over. I'm like, is she going to eat the short ribs? I bet she's not going to eat the short ribs. And then I'm like slapping my own hand. Yeah. I'm like, this is where it comes from. So yeah, I agree. This is the universal conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you're heading into a major birthday next month, and so I want to know how how has your how has your cooking changed the most, and how have you as a person changed the most?
You're getting real deep here, okay?
Oh, it's fine because then we have the Food Network fan
Okay,
questions
good.
that are
Good, good,
really
good, good.
out of
Yeah,
control.
I really like this.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, especially where it comes to food. And I feel like, well, times change, food changes, right? And I feel like now I am more simple than ever, right?
Mm.
Like I feel like I became known for over the top sparkles, fire, sprinkles, glitter, and like, don't worry, that is still there.
I
Like
mean, every year the costumes just get better and better and bigger and bigger.
yes, but like in like in the food, like oh
Yeah.
yes, it's very much still there. Um, and I find myself going back to like these very simple roots, and it's something that was also instilled in me at Bouchon, which as high end and French as that was, Thomas Keller's simplistic philosophy of food. I remember suggesting a muffin flavor, and I was like, "We should do cranberry orange." And Sebastian Roxel, the corporate pastry chef, was like, "No, it has to be either cranberry or orange." I was like, "Oh, yeah, there's a simplicity." I mean, I will always put orange with cranberry to
Yeah.
heighten the cranberry.
Yeah.
But like if you look on my Instagram, and I should do a better job of saving them because I really put them in my stories.
Yeah.
But
You
it's
do.
like what I'm baking at home or on the weekend, it is, something that is at its core simple. And I feel like I value the simplicity of even a slice of cake.
Well,
Right?
I think the last thing I saw was you made it like an apple pie dish, and the way that you showed that, I mean, it was apple pie. And sometimes even on the baking championship, when people like go overboard, they miss the point of it, and that's when they fail because they should just keep to basics
Well,
at times.
and simple is hard.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because it's very
You can
naked.
hide a lot of stuff under glitter. It's like when the fresh faced models show up and you're
Yeah,
like, do you have anything on your face? Like, is that natural? Right?
yeah.
Or versus when people show up with all of the lashes, all
Mhm.
of the glitter, the smoky eye, you're like, okay, you
Yeah.
you look amazing and you can hide anything. Um, simple is hard. And as a person, I haven't changed. Tens of thousands of dollars of therapy, and I am still the same person. Um, I've become much more self-aware,
Mhm.
and a lot of that is being able to celebrate myself. Um, and I feel like I had a 180 recourse to being on Bravo, being on Top Chef, right? Because I knew I filmed a TV show. I never realized that anyone would say anything to me about it in real life. And then
Yeah.
people started saying things, right? And then you get a little bit of like an ego. And again, it's being young and cocky, and it was kind of that way in
It's
the
natural.
right? So the 180 pendulum swing is like to not say anything, and like when Top Chef came out, everyone would be like, "Oh my God, I love you," and you're like, "I love you too," like woman with stroller.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in P Town, Provincetown, arguably my favorite place in the world. And I was waiting in line for the bathroom at the A House, which is a bar club.
Yep.
The guy comes up to me and is like, "Excuse me, are you?" And I'm like, yes, I am." And he's like, "Waiting for the bathroom?" And I'm like, yes, I am. Yes, I am waiting for the bathroom. Here is me, a normal person just waiting for the bathroom. And like, that's when I shut it off because I was like, nope. But I swung that pendulum a little too far the other way, you know, and if you ask any of my friends, you know, they will say like he is incredibly humble. And I feel like that is such a noble quality and something that I aspire to. And I feel like in pushing 40, like I'm okay if someone asks me what I do. It's still hard, but like if you ask me what I do 2 years ago, I would have been like, I do food. Like I don't even know how to tell you what I do, right? Because you don't want to, you know, like I don't know, success is relative, right? Like I still have so much more to do.
Yeah.
So why would I lead with anything that I've done? And now I feel like I can say like, oh, well, you know, I started this direct to consumer company for baked goods and my night job is in media. And just
that's still such a simple way to put it. I mean,
leave it there. But you know what? Being able to say that and being able to like celebrate what you've done, and it doesn't matter what you've done. You got a promotion at work. You started from nothing. You were the first person in your family to go to college. You didn't get a degree, and you did this, right? Like there are all these things to celebrate, and I feel like we should celebrate ourselves more. And I feel like for me, marching into 40, like I'm like, you know what? I can be a little more comfortable, like
ring them bells.
Yeah. Thanks, Liza.
Yeah. Loved your Liza, by the way. But all of these thoughts, literally, I mean, it's like a life affirming book using bakery allegories and your career. Okay, so we're going to get into Food Network, and I just have to say, you know, I've been such a huge fan. My mom is obsessed with you. Obsessed
Hi,
with
Mom.
you. She's watching. And it's a show that we really have bonded over because if somebody would have said, hey, you're going to be watching a food competition show, I'd be like, why? You can't smell it. You can't taste it. I can't cook worth shit. And now it's like I'm just like addicted. And I think a reason you have become such a fan favorite with so many groups of people is because you are sincere. The way you give 110% in your costumes, in your delivery, in your comedy, but also you have this sincere that you care about the contestants. And that really, really comes across. And so I just have to thank you for being such a sincere part of reality TV. And I'm like fangirling right now because I feel like we become your friend when we see you week after week. It's like we're hanging out with Zach this week. And
or Liza.
The three of you. I'm Liza. Hey, why were you late to I think it was like the second episode? You know, like the gay in me was like, why was he late? And then you show up at the end. It's like
I wasn't feeling well.
Okay.
And you know, we take safety and COVID things super, super seriously. So we just wanted to be like 100% sure that I was clear. I mean, we test every day. We PCR 3 times a week. Like it's a very rigorous, and I wasn't feeling well. I was honest about that. Should be. And luckily, everyone, our production company, they are literally the best people to work for, you know, because their policy is if you're not feeling well, don't come to work. 100%. And don't think of it as you're losing a paycheck because we're going to pay you. Like it's not worth it to anyone. No. So I wasn't feeling well. We I don't know if I can say this. We ended up driving a swab to the CDC lab in Atlanta because we're filming in Knoxville.
God, this is so high. It's like a Michael Crichton book.
Yes. Well, they have the most sensitive equipment, right? So like, let's just make sure.
I mean, the lengths you will go for your fans and the contestants.
Feeling fine midday. All like 17 tests came back negative. Like it was fine. It was, I mean, Knoxville pollen, by the way, no bueno. Allergies very bad. So then they're like, oh, like we want you to come back in for elimination. And I'm like, how are you going to spin that story? / you want me to come back on the first episode to watch like the first person go home whose cakes I haven't tried?
You're like, bye.
Sure. So
It worked.
I'm like, all right, well, can I get like a bathrobe? They're like, we don't have time to do your full costume, clearly. I was like, can I get a bathrobe, like a rubber duck and a shower
It was
cap?
cute.
Like, absolutely. And I walked back in and I was like, what did I miss?
And John Hanson in the corner was like,
I think
Okay,
it's something
so
like,
let's answer some of these Food
Yeah,
Network questions.
sorry.
These are from your fans. I know some of them you probably can't answer, but we're going to ask you anyway. The three of you seem to have such great chemistry. How much time do you, Stephanie and Carla, hang out outside of the show?
The whole time. We actually do our hair and makeup together instead of in our separate dressing rooms. And then actually the four of us, John included, go out for dinner every night.
Look at this picture.
Oh my God, so that was last season when one of our days off, I was like, we're going to Dollywood.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I asked, so we were filming in Knoxville and I asked them, they were like, do you want car service to set or do you want us to rent you a car? And I was like, no, I want you to rent me a truck. So I drove everyone in my truck to Dollywood.
What happens when two of you agree and the third does not agree? Is it majority rules or does it go to the producers?
Fist fight.
Okay.
I lose, by the way. Stephanie, she has a strong right hook.
I want to hang out with her. I want to go to every happy hour in every major city with her. Like,
Stephanie's literally the best. Oh. So smart too, and funny. But realistically, we will convince each other to join the majority. There's never been a deadlock like that.
So are you staying at an Airbnb? Is it a hotel? Like, are you all living on the same floor? What's happening?
Hotel for Halloween baking, although this year Carla got an Airbnb because she was filming Holiday right after. Oh. So we felt a little jilted because we normally go to the restaurant in the hotel
bar, yeah,
and we have our like normal order of like a salmon Caesar salad, this chubby shrimp cocktail, and I make them make a steak tartare because, well, one, I'm obsessed with steak tartare. Two, I saw it on the menu before we checked in the first year we shot it there, and they've since changed the menu. But I'm like, every time I go back, I'm like, can you make that steak tartare?
All right. This question is from a gay, obviously. Are you on the apps when you're out of town filming?
Seamless. I'm on Grubhub.
Good answer. How much of the dessert are you actually eating?
Depends on how good it is.
I mean, I've seen... The thing is, it's like when they have so many components and then I see you guys kind of nibble, I'm like, ooh, that must not taste good because you're just like...
Well, but I mean, sometimes it just depends on the shot, right? It depends on like when they actually film us. I mean, I have Clean Plate Club, you know, like I have no problem showing my clean plate. I don't actually have a hunger or full meter in me.
Join the club.
So I will eat everything that's in front of me. I would say normally I eat half the portion across the board because you need to be fair.
Yeah.
It's literally your job to eat. So suck it up. Yeah.
So this is the follow-up question is how do you prep for a day of tasting? Are you skipping breakfast? Are you like fasting before so you can eat all that? Or
no, you got to stretch it out. You got to push the walls, you know?
Yeah.
I'm a creature of habit. So every morning, my venti unsweetened Starbucks iced coffee and the spinach feta egg white wrap. But that's every day of the year. Unless they're out of it. And then hell hath no fury.
And then it's the steak tartare. How much time are you spending with the contestants, or do you just see them while they're at the actual filming and you're judging them?
We only see them while we're filming.
Wow.
It's kind of like a hard line. You can't be friends until after, and then we become friends. But they're all so good, and they're also, I mean, especially this season, they are incredible, and they're like wonderful people too. So
And here's one of your fans wants to know: is it hard to remain objective based on the food when you come to love some of their personalities? And you're just like, oh, we love them so much. The ones that make you laugh, the ones you just feel good about, and then their food. Is it hard to remain objective?
Not really, actually. It it's harder to like deliver the truth to them because you're like, I like you as a person, kind of like my mother would say to me, like, I love you, I don't love all of the decisions that you make. But no, because it's about the work.
Do you usually have a good idea of who's going to last based on the first challenge?
I am always wrong.
Really? Really?
No, except for no, I was right for 3 seasons.
Okay. Okay. How
But
come?
again, it's not about who's the best. It's about who has the worst day.
Oh, hey, that's very true.
It happened this season.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, this season was very strong, but I can say like Marixa on this season,
Yeah.
ridiculously talented, so incredibly strong, had a bad round, and it's like can't do anything about that.
And sometimes it hurts. So here's a follow-up question. One of your fans has a real problem with the rules. They want to know how come a baker's past wins don't save them when they have a bad day. It's like, well, they have 8 winning desserts and then they have a crappy day. That can't save them at all.
It has to be formulaic. Like there has to be that rule, because if not, you're going to keep going back to what someone did before, and that's what sucks, right? Yeah.
You are hilarious. Everybody's hilarious. Are you writing your own puns? Do you get time to write them down? Like Drag Race, they get 2 attempts to write down their jokes.
They get time? No, I get no time. That is all on the fly.
That is good. That is good.
Yeah, nothing scripted, nothing fed. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, it's funny because sometimes I see John Henson look over like, God damn, why didn't I say that?
Well, because sometimes the host's stuff is scripted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like his intros and whatever clearly are like pre-written.
The way he's so committed to that, by the way.
But John also will like go off script.
Yeah. I can imagine a lot ends up on the cutting room. What has been one of your favorite costumes? Which one was your least favorite to wear?
So my least favorite to wear, which actually turned into one of my most favorites, was the cupcake, which actually you guys showed a picture of.
Hilarious. But it was your attitude.
Correct. Well, I decided, I was like, you know what? We're going to make this a bit. So something was happening in production. We were behind, and like the beauty of Halloween Baking Championship is it is kind of a community theater production, which is what makes it so good. Carla and I were literally talking about it today. She called me just to give me a voice hug.
Oh my God, how sweet.
Like Carla Hall.
She's amazing.
Anyway, so something happened. We had to do this last minute thing. It ended up being like it was like maybe an Amazon thing out of the package that they were like, oh, we're going to jazz it up. And
Hey, City.
Like, this is, yeah, no. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to be a stale cupcake. And I told my makeup artist that, and she was like, yeah, but I'm going to go the opposite direction too. Like, we're going to do rosy cheeks. We're going to do freckles. I'm like,
it was so good. I mean, that was like a one-man show waiting to happen. It's like, I want to go see the cupcake and hear this cupcake's life story.
People made fan art out of it. Like,
yeah, of course. I'm sure there's a tattoo out there in an interesting place too.
I mean, if you have it, show me.
So this comes from another gay. Have you ever dated a contestant after the show?
No. That was a dramatic pause.
Yeah.
Wait, have I? No.
Even like one date.
Pardon the French. I don't shit where I eat.
Okay.
And that's not a moral high ground. That's not anything. It was even in the restaurants. Like, I never dated a waiter or a cook or anyone who worked there, and it was not, again, like I wasn't separating church and state or work and home. I just also feel like it's a different relationship.
Mm. That's pretty responsible because I have to say the waiters in New York are the hottest in any city at any given time.
Well, I didn't say I didn't date waiters.
Well, I
Just
mean, but I'm
not the
saying.
ones who worked in our restaurant.
Okay, this one's a funny one. Can you all say acidity just one more time? What does that actually mean?
Acidity?
I swear to God, if you play a drinking game, if you watch back and it's like, the acidity cuts through, it's every critique, and it's
You
like,
know what
okay,
it is?
what does that really mean?
I put a moratorium on the word moist.
Moist.
So I was
Well,
like, so we have to choose something else to talk about. But again, like the acid in a dish, right? It's so when you're counterbalancing sweet, right?
but what is the
You can
acid? Does
go
it mean just like a
salty.
sour taste? Does it mean
Correct.
okay?
Sour. Yeah, salt. Well, it's any contrast to sweet. So it could be bitter, salty, sour, acidic. I mean, it's acid, it's vinegar, it's citrus, it's lemon.
I cannot tell you what a joy it is to laugh with you about it, especially watching it week after week and be like, oh, time to take another sip. There's acidity going on. When I have dinner with my mom, I swear to God, I'll be like, how's the acidity? I'm not even kidding. It's like our biggest joke.
It's about balancing the sweetness. There's ways to achieve it, but we do love acid.
I think this probably comes from the same fan. Is do people actually cook with cardamom, and what does it taste for somebody who doesn't know?
What's cardamom?
I mean,
So cardamom is I would say like the fifth warm spice after like the classic pumpkin pie spices.
sporty spice, sure, sure.
Right,
Scary
right.
spice.
Ginger spice. So cardamom, it has a warmth to it. It also has a little bit of acidity.
Dork.
It has some citrusy notes to it. So it's warm but citrusy.
We got so many other fan questions. Obviously, we can't get through them all. I just need everybody to know the PieCaken is totally deliverable. It comes in the perfect condition, and I got it delivered to Los Angeles. It made the holiday. It was amazing, but it won't last as long as you think at all. It was gone within 3 days, and that is a big piece of dessert. So that with the business happening, with the show happening, with everything that as a businessman and just dominating media right now, what is your life priority? Is it growing the business? Is it growing your TV personality? Is it working on a cookbook? What would you say is your first priority when you wake up?
I love the media stuff. And what I said when I started doing it was I'll do it as long as it's fun. And that was also a recoil from kind of my theater days of like I don't want to feel like I'm ever pounding pavement.
Yeah.
I will just keep doing it until it's fun. And I haven't really said no to anything since. But yeah, my day job. I mean, our direct to consumer business is insane. We did a project for Costco last year. There's a ton more like retail things that we're working on. And I love it. But it is very weird to go from like being in the kitchen for 14, 16 hours a day every day to like growing a
Yeah.
business. I barely have a BFA in musical theater. Like and I'm like,
You're like, I did Death of a Salesman one time. That's as much business experience as I have.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I watch Mommy Dearest. I know how board meetings go. Don't fuck with
Hey,
me.
that's a costume you haven't done yet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a fun question. Is what is your go-to baking dish to wow a date or to impress somebody that you would make at home?
McDonald's soft serve.
The acidity.
My go-to dessert.
Yeah.
I do have a freezer full of cookie dough.
Oh. Do you?
It's how it all started, and it's
Yeah.
also like immediate gratification.
I love that. And
Right?
I'm I'm a cookie monster. I have never met a cookie that I will say no to, even if I like, oh, I don't like those. They'll be gone. I am a legitimate cookie monster.
Same. I'm like, these are terrible.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I do. All right, Zach, as we're nearing the holidays, I have to know, and it's so cheesy, but it's a cute question, is what are you most thankful for this year?
Um, wow. Uh, hmm. I'm thankful for my chosen family. I'm always thankful for my blood family. I'm so incredibly thankful for my friends, my core group of friends, especially going into 40, right? Who have been with me through everything, and are my biggest cheerleaders, are the ones who push me, who call me out, like that. They're irreplaceable. And I feel like a lot of times when work gets crazy or I'm traveling or whatever, it's not, I don't forget about them because they're so much a part of me. But I'm so grateful to be back and spending time with them. So it's that crew.
Yeah, yeah. All right, next time you're on the West Coast, we got to do bakery tasting at the Abbey over cocktails.
Yeah.
Because
Or
that's
go
just
to
what
the
we got to
Cheesecake
do.
Factory. I mean,
At the Grove, yeah.
yeah. Marina Del Rey, actually, it's my favorite.
I've not been to that one.
It's
We
on
will
the
have to
water.
sample.
We will go.
Zach, I cannot thank you. Like I said, a total fangirl here. Getting to spend time with you every week on such a fun show. And then for you sharing so much of your personal life. It really means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to your fans and our audience. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Where do you want people to find you and follow you, and where can we order a PieCaken?
Well, I mean, you can find me on the Instagram, Zac_Young, ZAC_YOUNG. And PieCaken Bake Shop, Goldbelly, shipped right to your door, goldbelly.com. Not
Goldbelly's
only
amazing.
PieCakens, but like literally anything else that you want.
Yeah, literally everything. And you don't have to wait for the holidays. You can get a PieCaken any time of the year.
Well, I mean, we do. Yeah, we have like 7 of them. Clearly,
Yeah.
we have our full calendar, and they freeze beautifully too.
Well, if I had any leftovers.
Well, yeah, if you have leftovers, which.
Thank you so much. I cannot wait to see the finale of the Halloween Bacon Championship. You can catch the whole season on Food Network. It's such a fun ride. Thank you again. And that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun here on The Rocks. Big thank you to our engineer, Tony Sweet, our social media clip editor, Alexis Mendez. Coming up for our Halloween episode, we have cast members from the original Charmed, by the way. And we don't just have like an extra. We have some big names coming in, so you're going to want to come back for that. Please like, share, subscribe so we can keep bringing you this fabulous programming coming your way. And I don't have to drive home, so I'm going to have another cocktail. And until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay sexy. More importantly, stay tipsy. See you next week.
Thank you.
Another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.